Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and today I want to come to you with a very serious video and talk about something right now that is really politically charged. And it happens from time to time when these mass tragedies occur. Now, in light of what happened last week, and in fact these events have been going on since the 1990s or so, or the ones that get the most publicity, these arguments and these debates always come up on how to keep our kids safe in schools. And I know if you're on one side of the debate or the other, it's really easy to get your emotions all fired up. And like I made the videos about the ATF pistol brace amnesty, and I said, guys, we got to calm down. You have to approach this stuff from a logical and rational perspective. I think this is another thing that we can do that with. Now, I know in many of those videos that I talked about the ATF pistol brace amnesty, people always accuse me, Jason, you are a Fed. This is some type of entrapment. You're an ATF agent. And I always laugh at those comments because in reality, I'm actually a music teacher. Yeah, that's what I do for a living. I have a doctorate in my field. I have taught all the way from 6th grade through college. I was a college professor for a period of time. And currently I teach in a number of different schools in a number of different districts at a number of different levels. So I can see the educational system from the inside. I see all these security measures that are going on and things that I call security theater happening. I also see it from the perspective of a gun person. Obviously, I have a Firearms YouTube channel, and the Second Amendment is something I am very passionate about. And you guys see the types of guns that I collect and how I talk about proper education and responsibility. I'm also a father. I have 4 amazing boys. I was very blessed to marry my wife. I don't have any biological children of my own, but I have 4 amazing stepsons. 1 has already graduated, and I have 3 currently that are seniors in high school. So I also see this from the parents' perspective. And obviously, I want my kids to be safe as well. So I see this debate from all different sides. And I'm going to make this video and talk about a few things in a little bit different way than I normally do. This might not be one of my more polished videos because I'm just going to use a little bullet point script that I came up with here to make sure that I don't forget about anything. Now, just like my ATF pistol brace amnesty videos, there's a couple of things that I am going to ask you guys to try to do. Number 1, let's take the politics out of it and assume that the people that are on the other side of the debate have some type of nefarious motive. Now, as I've said in the past, there are people at the very top that want gun control for nefarious reasons. But most of the people that you are going to encounter and debate in your personal life that might be on the other side of the argument than you, and this is whether you are anti or pro-gun, you cannot assume that they have some type of nefarious motive. Just because somebody is uneducated and wants to ban guns and that's their only solution doesn't mean they necessarily hate you. You have to get that part of the emotion and the passion out of the argument so you can debate people rationally. And I also ask people that are on the anti-gun side not to look at people that are pro-gun and go, well, they're just carrying the water of the gun lobby. They just want money. They don't care about kids, because that's the furthest thing from the truth. I think that everybody in this debate wants our kids to be safe. And we want our schools to be a safe place for them to be. So we do have that in common. And as I mentioned, I want to take politics out of this. And so while each of these events is almost unique, because of maybe the motives or the personalities or who did it, the fact is they're all trying to do the same thing. So I am not going to talk about the most recent event, which looks like it was possibly politically motivated, because that doesn't really play into the situation, because we have people that have done these because they are just depressed and sad and they feel like the world has wronged them. Possibly in this last event, it's because this person felt like laws were being passed and there's some type of genocide going on. All these people are mentally ill. Anybody that has the capacity to do this, whatever their personal motivation is, honestly is irrelevant, because we have a few things that we can do and talk about that take all of that out of the debate, because it doesn't matter what their motivation is, and what matters is their actions, and can we stop those actions? And the first thing I want to talk about is what is not going to work. What is not working now? And I'm going to go from both sides of the aisle on this one. But let's talk about the big ones first. Gun bans, assault weapons bans. Let's ban guns. As I have told people in the past, that horse has already left the building. If we ban them all right now, and let's just say it's one of the old assault weapons ban where everything is grandfathered in, there are already more guns in the United States than there are people. And when it comes to these events, it really doesn't matter what type of gun you use. Whether you're going to use an AR-15 or a lever action rifle, a handgun, or even a revolver, all of those guns are as lethal as the next. It doesn't really matter. And confiscation is not going to work here in the United States. There are too many guns. And even if they did somehow pass that in a dystopian world, there are going to be so many people that hide their guns, don't turn them in. There's no way of confiscating them all. So that horse has left the building. So a lot of these people are like, we just need to ban guns, and then they're going to do nothing else about it and feel like, yes, I got this done. Well, that's obviously not going to work. Universal background checks is the next thing I want to talk about. So let's look at how some of these people that have gotten these weapons to do these events have procured them. Well, one that happened in Connecticut, well, he killed his mother and stole her gun. So a background check would not have done anything to prevent that. The most recent event, as I'm filming this, in Nashville, well, this person procured their guns legally. They went to a gun store. They passed a background check. So the people that are perpetrating these are passing background checks, and maybe we can talk about the background check system when it comes to mental health, but they are passing the checks, or they're getting the guns illegally, whether they're stealing the guns, or in some cases, I think they've even made the guns, because we live in a world of 3D printed firearms, and there's nothing you can do to stop that. You can say you can't 3D print a gun. Well, that's not going to stop a criminal. We have laws against stealing, but people still go out and steal. So the actual production of the firearm is not going to be stopped just because you pass a bill and pat yourself on the back and say, we banned 3D printed guns. Well, people are still going to 3D print guns. And then, of course, I think we need to talk about magazine limits, because a lot of times the anti-gun people are people that only go to the solutions where we need to ban things go to is magazine limits, because if you have a 100-round drum, you don't need that to go hunting. It's only designed to kill people. Well, when you're in a situation and the people that you are committing these atrocious acts against are unarmed, and they're elementary school kids, it doesn't matter if you have a 5-shot revolver or an AR-15 with a Betamax that can hold 100 rounds. These people cannot fight back. And if you're in a situation where these schools are in lockdown and they're not supposed to leave, well, you fire the 5 shots of the revolver, you have plenty of time to empty the cylinder and put 5 shots in again. It doesn't matter, because the equation is so unbalanced, because you have somebody that is armed with a deadly weapon and you have a bunch of people that are not, and they are scared. So it doesn't matter about magazine limits. And plus, once again, that horse has already left the barn. Magazines are not serialized. We don't even know how many are out there. And trust me, almost every gun today has a magazine that holds more than 10 rounds, or whatever the arbitrary limit is. You're not going to get those back. There's no way of telling who has them, and there are literally hundreds of millions of them out there. So we have to agree that living in a world where we think that we can legislate our way out of this is unrealistic. The people on the anti-gun side have got to come to the realization that is not reality. And I'm not saying that because once again, I want kids to die. I'm just saying we have to look at the situation for what the situation is. One thing I learned when I was growing up is that life is not fair. And in this case, life is not fair. So if you want to ban your way into safety, it's not going to happen. So you have to come to the acceptance that magazine limits and gun bans and background checks are not going to solve this at all. Because somebody that has it in their heart to commit these atrocities is not going to be deterred by any of that. But now let's talk about the pro-gun people and the things that a lot of them say we need to do that are not working either. And this has to go with the things that I call security theater. Now, as I said, I teach in a number of different schools, in a number of different school districts. And because of this, I see this security theater handled a number of different ways. There's no one way of doing it. One district has these policies, one district has these policies. Some districts have policies, whether it's a high school or a middle school or an elementary school. It's kind of all over the place. But in general, what I have discovered when it comes to this security theater stuff is we're just going to go ahead and lock all the doors all the time. There's only going to be one entrance. Now, yes, that is a really smart idea, but most of the time, because these schools want to be inviting, they're all made of glass. Now, I know it's kind of a dark place to go in your mind, but you have to think like a criminal to stop a criminal. That's why we have criminal profilers. And when it comes to the schools that I teach in, I see it all the time. I walk up to a glass door that's locked, and I think to myself, all I really need is a hammer or a brick. And I'll be wearing gloves so I don't cut my hands on the glass, or I can just shoot through the glass if that's what I wanted to do. And we saw that in Nashville. So great, you have the doors locked. You have these great magnetic locking systems, but people can still get through the doors. I understand why you want glass doors, because it's more welcoming. It's more inviting. You get natural light in, but you have to admit, they're not secure at all. Another thing that I think is really silly and stupid that I have to participate in at the schools that I teach at are things that are called lockdown drills. And lockdown drills are essentially active shooter drills, and the idea is that if there is some type of event where somebody would enter a school with a firearm and is doing horrific things, there's an alarm that goes off, and teachers are supposed to lock their doors, turn off the lights, and all the kids are supposed to huddle in one little corner of the room and be as quiet as possible. These are absolutely silly. So here's why. You're essentially taking the targets that these criminals want to hurt and putting them all in very small places where they can't defend themselves. The perpetrators know where they are. And guess what is on the door of all of these locked doors? That's right. Normally, a window. And what have I already said about glass windows and doors? They are easily broken. So somebody can go in, bust the window out, reach in, unlock the door, and now you have all of the kids, all of the victims in one tiny little place. They haven't left. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should just run and leave, but I've had to think about this myself in the places where I teach. And I've had to make these decisions and go, okay, so I'm sitting here next to the exit of the building. If something honestly happened and I heard gunshots, well, my responsibility, of course, is to keep the kids that I am with as safe as possible. Now, in the capacity of what I do, many times I'm just dealing with students one-on-one, and I've thought to myself, if something like this happens, I might just run out that door that's 5 feet away, and I'm going to tell the kid, run as far as you can and don't come back until you see the police have secured the building. Because I don't think being in a little practice room where I'm usually teaching a music lesson is the best place for us to be. You can always deal with it later. You can always come back and be like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have left the school, but there was an active shooter event. Hey, I'm alive. Now, I am not telling anybody that they should leave the school or rush or go against school district policies. I'm not saying that, and I don't even know how I would react when my life was truly endangered. But I find that these lockdown drills are absolutely silly and insane. But yet we think that we're doing something. And many times I feel like the schools just do these things for liability reasons. You know, the anti-gunners want to accuse the pro-gunners of carrying the water of the gun lobby, and they care about profits more than lives. Well, I think the anti-gunners care more about money because they just do a lot of this lockdown stuff or have these procedures so the school can't be sued later. They can say, listen, we did all these things. You can't come to us and say it's our fault. We had all these policies in place. Don't sue us. So as you can see, many of the things that are proposed or things that we already do aren't working. So we have to come up with a better solution. So let me look at my notes here, and I think I want to talk about who are we dealing with next. So the thing about these crimes and what makes them so difficult to fight and come up with any solutions for is the people that commit these don't care about living beyond the action that they're doing. So unlike a thief, the thief wants to rob the bank, but they want to live because they want to enjoy the spoils of their crime. They want to have that money and live on and enjoy it. It's not like their whole motivation is, I want to steal the money, but if I die, I die. That's not what they want. Look at the North Hollywood shootout many years ago. Those guys went in with guns and armor. They wanted to live. Yes, the cops got them and killed them, but their motivation was to rob that bank and to get out alive. But these people don't care. If the cops don't kill them, they already plan on committing suicide anyway, because the whole goal of this is to cause as much emotional harm as possible to the community. That's why they choose the schools. That's why they don't go to a mall or a bank or someplace else. They go to a place where it's going to have the biggest impact, and they will be remembered and glorified forever in the media. They won't be forgotten or in their minds. Now, as you notice, I don't use any of their names here, and I try not to give any information about the events because I don't want to glorify any of them. But because we know their motivations and what they're willing to do, we have to have different strategies. You can't have a strategy for trying to deter sane people as you would trying to deter insane people. Insane people will do irrational things. One of my friends is a former Secret Service agent, and he told me about when it comes to the people that they're constantly on the lookout for. They know that if somebody is truly motivated and determined, they're going to try something regardless of all of the things that they do, and they have to prepare for that, and they're always looking for the eventuality of that. They know that they can pass laws, they can have visible security, but somebody that is truly insane, somebody that is irrational and motivated like this will try something. And because they know that, they can take steps to protect people like the president. And they do an amazing job because they have a threat assessment for both rational and irrational people. And I feel that when it comes to these events, we need to do the threat assessment for the irrational people. So for example, putting up gun-free zone signs does absolutely nothing because it doesn't stop the people that are going to do this from carrying the gun in. No person that has ever walked up to a school wanting to do this and looked at the gun-free zone sign and went, oh, guns aren't allowed here. It only makes people feel safe. It doesn't actually make them safe. So let's talk about what we can really do. And I know this is going to upset some people because what we can really do if we truly are serious is not what people necessarily want, because they want to feel like they can live in this utopia where we can have wide open schools and not have to worry about these events. But once again, reality is going to have to set in. So as a lot of people say, we have to harden these targets, but we have to harden the targets and harden these schools in a very serious way. Because when it comes to these people, there's a risk and a reward for them. What is the risk? Well, their lives. And of course, I've already said they want to die. So that is not really going to be that much of a deterrent. But what is the reward? They're wanting to get as much carnage as possible in the shortest amount of time. If they go in and only one person is hurt and then they get shot by the police, well, everything they did, all of the planning was for nothing. They want to rack up the biggest body count, and that's what we have to try to stop. So, what I think we have to do, and this is just being realistic, is a number of things. The first off, we need more visible security at schools. And of course, a lot of people say you can't do this because it makes the kids feel like they're living in a prison. Well, you know, do they feel that way when they walk into a federal building and they have to pass security checkpoints or checkpoints at airports? So they go, oh no, we're flying on prison air. No, it's just part of life. That's what we do. We see armed security at banks and we don't go, oh no, I'm walking into the prison bank. We need visible security. We know that if people are there, whether they are uniformed police officers or security guards, that type of stuff deters these people because they want to be able to get into the building unannounced as quickly as possible. And if there are people there that can stop them, they're going to think, well, I'm not going to get a big reward from this, and I'm not going to go ahead and go through with this, and I'm going to find a softer target. I also think that we need trained personnel. I had mentioned in the past that I feel like we should start some type of law enforcement agency, possibly made up of former law enforcement or ex-military, who are willing to stand guard at these schools with firearms. And they should be uniformed and they should be visibly armed. And a lot of people are going to say, Jason, how in the world can we fund this? This is where things get really silly and stupid. Now, as I said, I'm not going to bring in politics, but I'm going to bring in a couple of examples. At a federal level, we spend billions of dollars. We just snap our fingers and make billions of dollars appear to send to countries across the world, like Ukraine. Now, I don't care if you like Ukraine or don't like Ukraine or don't think about the war or care a lot about the war. I'm just talking about the money here. We just make money appear at the federal level and in the tunes of billions of dollars. But you ask them, you ask our lawmakers, we got to create this program of armed security for schools. Like, oh no, we can't do that. That's going to cost like $3 billion a year. We can't do that. Where are we going to get that money from? And then the very next week, they're like, oh, we need to send $75 billion to Ukraine. Let's do it. And they don't even bat an eye. We have the money. At the state level, these states will spend tons of money on stupid projects like, look what's going on in California right now. They're getting ready to try to spend billions and billions and billions of dollars on reparations. And California wasn't even a slave-holding state. It's all just for political posturing, but they're going to spend billions of dollars to do that. Will they spend that money to harden the schools? No, they won't. What about at a local level? I see it all the time here in Texas. You know what's important to Texans apparently? Football. And a lot of these districts, they're like, we can't afford to pay a security guard $60,000 a year. We can't do it. Where are we going to get that money? Oh yeah, we're about to spend $15 million or $20 million on this new football stadium. And then of course we have to spend millions of dollars in upkeep. But that's important. But the security guard, no, we can't do that. We don't have the money for that. But trust me, we have the money to hire all of these new administrators. Every school needs to have a principal and 10 assistant principals. We're going to have the latest and greatest football stadium. That's where the money should go. In their opinions, I think it should go to school security. So I know that we definitely have the money. Now the next two things are going to be very controversial. I believe that if you have a concealed weapons permit or an LTC, you should still be allowed to carry in schools. You don't change who you are because you're in a school versus a mall. I don't change because I go into a school. I have lots of guns. Now, I, of course, never carry into a school. I sure wish that I could, but I follow the law. I know how to use a firearm, and I like to think if something happened in a school, I could protect children. But I'm not allowed to. I also think that we should arm teachers. And I know people will go, no, what are you talking about? They're going to get mad at a kid and kill a kid. No. Once again, they don't change just because of who they are. And if you want them to go through some type of formal or special training, That's great. I'm totally okay with that. But the more guns you have on school, the more visible security, the harder these targets are. And these people are going to go, it's not worthy of me taking the time and going into it because I'm going to be stopped so quickly. We've also got to stop using glass doors at schools. This is so silly and so stupid. There's no point in having a locked door if the entire door is glass. And I've already talked about that in a previous part of the video. We either got to start putting up metal or steel doors or actually putting bars on these doors and windows. It's the only way of deterring them. People that have the motivation to do this are evil, and they will do anything to get in. They will plan this ahead. They understand school security because they most likely went to the school that they want to do this at. They know exactly what happens at certain times. They know when the bells ring. They know what the protocols are. So if you have a glass door, it's not going to stop them. And so now the last thing I want to talk about is how can we prevent these from happening before they ever take place? And it has to do with identifying the people that are going to commit these atrocities. I like to think that a lot of us have known people like this in the past. There's always been that guy down the road or that person that you went to school with that you've thought to yourself, if I found out that they were a school shooter or they're going to grow up one day to be a member of the White Panel Van Association and kidnap kids, you're like, it's not going to surprise me at all because I definitely see that. There's something wrong with them, but there's nothing anybody can do. You know, if we ban guns and ban high-capacity magazines, those people are still going to be in our society. They're going to be your next door neighbor. They're going to walk among us. And because they have the capacity in their mind to commit these atrocities, just taking that one tool away from them doesn't mean that they're not going to find another way. If your town had a serial killer called the Strangler who strangles women with ropes, just because you ban the rope doesn't mean it's going to stop happening, because the heart of that person is still evil, it's still corrupted, and they're going to find a way to do what they want to do with another tool. And like I've mentioned in previous videos, if you ban the guns and really harden the schools, the kids are still not 100% safe. What's going to stop one of these people from going out and renting a big old truck, and when the school lets out and the kids are walking across the street, just going down the road as fast as they possibly can and running over as many of these kids as possible? That can still happen, and we have to think about that. That just because it didn't happen in the school with a firearm doesn't mean that these people don't have it in their heart and have the capacity to continually hurt these people to get the most publicity and still go out in this blaze of glory in this fantasy that they have created for themselves. We have to stop these people before it ever escalates to this point, and there are things that we can do. I can tell you as a school teacher, I have had a few students in the past that they would come in and have lessons with me. And as I got to know the kids, there were times I go, yeah, there's definitely something wrong with this kid. I'm not saying it in an evil way, but he has maybe a learning disability or he's on the spectrum. And so I can best serve him. I go to the people above me and I ask, hey, this child, do they have a 504 plan? So if I know what their disabilities are or what their accommodations are, it would help me teach them. It would help me educate them and serve them better. And often I'll have these teachers and these administrators look at me and go, no. And they know in their heart that these kids have something wrong, and they go, nope. The parents don't want it. They don't believe it. The school has talked to them and go, hey, your kid might be on the spectrum a little bit or might need help in this capacity. And the parents go, nope, not my kid. My kid is perfect. It's just something they're going to grow out of. And you're thinking to yourself, well, this kid is violent, or this kid has said things, or this kid is definitely not working with a full mental capacity. And the parents completely ignore it because they can't imagine that their beautiful child has anything wrong with them. While everybody else is like, yep, if there's going to be a school shooter here, it's going to be that kid because of the things he says, the way he acts, the things he does. Man, I am scared. I'm nervous. He's weird. He talks to girls kind of weird, he's kind of stalkerish. It's not right. And the school can't do anything because the parents won't help. I actually think that the school should have some type of reporting system. Now, I'm not saying that the schools can unilaterally just come in and take the kids away or do much. They have to go to some type of adjudication, a legal system where if enough has happened or enough teachers raise concerns and go, something has to be done, this needs to be investigated, that the school can report to somebody or some agency and they can come in and evaluate the situation. Because a lot of times when it comes to these people that have committed these crimes, we find out, oh yeah, they were already known to the school, they were already known to law enforcement, but they couldn't do anything because they hadn't done anything that was illegal to that point. But everybody knew there was something wrong with them. And as a society, we have to stop ignoring the mental health issues of citizens. We can't turn a blind eye. And some of that has to come from the community, and some of that has to come from the schools or other organizations. That if you see a kid that is obviously outside the norm and has said violent things or writes an essay about hurting other kids at school, you have to be able to do something, even if the parents go, no, my beautiful angel is innocent and never would hurt anybody, and he hasn't broken the law, so nothing can be done. The schools have to have some type of reporting system where these kids might be able to be taken out, put into an alternative school where they can get psychological help and counselors to help them and figure out, are these people really threats? Are they just awkward? What's really happening here? And have a true threat assessment. Something else that I think schools should be able to do, and I know this is going to be controversial, is I really feel that if you have students like this that are making constant threats, schools should be allowed to report temporarily and after a judge signs off on it to the NICS system. Now, this would not catch all of them, but we've had a lot of these incidences where students are 19, 20, 21, 22 years old that are coming back to the schools in which they attended and committing these atrocities. And the school knew about them. Well, what if the schools had the ability to say, well, for the next 7 years, you go on to the NICS system and can't purchase a gun because we've had reason to believe you're violent, you've made these threats, and a judge signs off on it. You have been adjudicated mentally defective, and for the next 7 years, you cannot purchase a firearm. Now, as I said, that doesn't mean they're not going to acquire them illegally or steal them, but it puts them on some type of list. It puts them on a watch list to make them known to law enforcement, and they're not stripping the due process rights or just blatantly saying a whole class of citizens can't be legally armed just because they're of a certain age. So if you're 18, you can go out and buy a firearm. If you're not on this list, it's perfectly fine, but the people that we know are issues or attended these alternative schools have a temporary block on the NICS system so they can't buy a gun. And I know, as I said, that's not going to be super popular with everybody, but it's something that we can do. As I said, a lot of times these events are perpetrated by people that were known and were able to purchase the guns legally. And if they were able to have some type of block over a few years or a period of time, it might have prevented it, but it doesn't trample on the rights of other citizens that are 18, 19, and 20 years old that were perfectly adjusted, perfectly normal, perfectly responsible from having their rights stripped away from them. And the last thing I think we have to do is change the culture. I know that our culture today, and people want to blame everything, whether it be on video games or music or art or television. However, it's culture. Our culture worships at the altar of violence and degeneracy. We have ignored a cultural rot in our society. Now, how do we fix that? I really feel like as a community, we have to come together. We have to have stronger families. We have to have stronger cohesive bonds, things that in our society connect all of us. Now, I'm not saying it has to be religion. I'm not saying it's race. I'm not saying any of that. But for a long time, regardless of your sex, your religion, your age, any of those factors, we still came together as Americans and we all agreed on certain things like liberty and freedom and our Republican form of government. We didn't always have to agree, but we had shared values. And our culture has degenerated to the point where we have some people that openly flaunt things that even just 10 years ago were unthinkable. We have this cultural rot, and we have people that every day on social media make a living just doing hateful things. They hate this person, they hate this group, they hate this whatever, and it's totally fine for them to go after them. And then the other side has to respond. And now we've become so bifurcated as a society that we don't even have shared values. It used to be that Republicans and Democrats could go, yeah, we disagree on all of these policies. However, we're still American. We still love our freedom. We might have different ways of going about it, but we're all on the same team. And it really feels like we're not on that same team anymore. How do we fix this? Well, that's something that I don't have a solution for, but it's something that I think that we have to be aware of. And I think the only way that we can ever address this is for people to start standing up, to start talking about it. When you see things that are culturally degenerate, just don't be silent and go, well, I can't say anything because I don't want to offend anybody. Maybe it's time that we stand up and start shaming people that do degenerate things in our society. Maybe it's time for us to say, listen, for you to behave in this way, to act in this way, in this particular setting, well, that's not appropriate. It's also time for mothers and fathers and parents to teach their kids responsibility, not just send them off to school and treat it like it's a daycare. It's time for them to be active in raising their children. It's time for them to show them loving households and what a real family unit is supposed to be, and not have companies like Walt Disney World that are producing content on Disney Plus and just popping your kids in front of the television and letting them be the parents and teach them rules, morals, and ethics. That's not who should be teaching your kids. It should be parents. It should be you. And that's how we change the culture. And that's not going to change overnight. But if we can change the culture and stop glorifying these events and giving them all of this notoriety, they will go away. And in conjunction with hardening the targets, I think we can do a lot to fix this problem. And I know this has been a super long video, and I appreciate it if you've watched to the end. I doubt many people have. But as I said, I like to think I have a unique perspective on this. I see it as a gun owner. I see it as a father. I see it as a teacher. And I've been doing this for a long time. And this is something that I definitely think that we can solve, but we have to do it together, and we all have to be on the same page, and we have to do things that truly are going to make a difference. And we have to be realistic about that. So I hope that we can have a great discussion in the comments section below. I hope that I didn't bore you, and it really means a lot to me if you watch to the end of this video. So I hope that one day we can come together and have real solutions. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.